Thank you very much. I appreciate your kindness very much.
Legendary writers like Chinua Achebe come perhaps once in a century. This is what Nigeria, Africa, the literary world lost on the 21st of March, 2013. He had been perceived by scholars worldwide as the most important figure in the field of African literature. Some described him as the pioneer of African literature. Others called him the grandfather of Nigerian literature. And yet, others referred to him as the creative genius and preeminent African novelist of the 20th century. Chinua Achebe was a world-acclaimed African writer who in 1958, at the young age of 28, published his first novel, Things Fall Apart, that went on to become a world classic. This anti-colonial novel told the inside story of European colonialism in Africa and laid to rest centuries of European distortions of African pre-colonial life, history, and reality. At his death, he was a distinguished professor and writer-in-residence at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. For more than 50 years, Chinua Achebe ruled the world of African literature, providing it stature, substance, structure, vitality. In 1964, Achebe issued a kind of blueprint for his contemporaries and other writers after them on what African imaginative writing at the time should be about. It is the dignity that many African people all but lost during the colonial period, and it is this that they must now regain. The writer's duty is to help them regain it by showing them in human terms what happened to them, what they lost. Achebe had clearly answered for the African continent the often asked question: how is African literature different from other literatures, particularly Western literature? He defined African literature as a literature of socio-cultural relevance and the African writer in terms of service to one's community. He had no problem using English to communicate his African values, asserting that by doing so, he was neither betraying his Africanness, nor demeaning his Afrocentric integrity as an artist. He urged the African writer to strip the English language of its colonial rigidity and customize it to suit the needs of the African sociocultural and linguistic environments. The success of his novel Things Fall Apart stunned the whole world, especially many European literary scholars who had believed that, like the biblical Nazareth of old, nothing good, particularly literary, could come out of Ogidi, Achebe's birthplace, Nigeria, or anywhere in Africa for that matter. In his book The Trouble with Nigeria, 1983, he stated that the trouble with Nigeria was visionless and corrupt leadership. He was consistent in preaching the truth no matter the circumstance. Since the death of Chinua Achebe, two questions constantly featured in the media. What accounts for Chinua Achebe's worldwide fame as a writer? And what is it about Things Fall Apart that makes it resonate with readers all over the world? 1. Chinua Achebe happened, and world literature was changed forever. 2. Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart emerged, and the art of the novel was changed forever. Ernest Emenyonu interviewed Chinua Achebe and asked him two vital questions. The first, what is your vision of African literature in the 21st century? The second, what is your message for young African writers in the new millennium? Embodied in Chinua Achebe's answers are visions for both the African writer and African literature in the 21st century. Achebe provided for modern African literature a recognizable identity in its evolution and development for over 50 years. The greatest tribute that can be paid to him is to make sure that his vision for the future of African literature is realized and excelled. As news of Achebe's death was heard around the world, His Excellency Amos O. Idowu, Nigerian ambassador to Lebanon, had the foresight to open his embassy in Beirut to all sympathizers. During the sympathy visit at the embassy, Professor Edward Alam proposed to the ambassador the idea of honoring the legacy of Achebe.
During the sympathy visit at the embassy, my colleague, Dr. Gito Khorani, director of the Lebanese Immigration Research Center here at NDU, and I together proposed to His Excellency the idea of honoring the legacy of Achebe through some sort of joint Lebanese-Nigerian celebration that would attempt to cultivate the cultural links between the two countries.
I'm Nigerian and Lebanese, and I felt like, which is the truth anyways, that these two geographical spaces have had like a very one-dimensional interaction with each other, over a century-old interaction, which is very one-dimensional and one-sided. And an event like this meant that people were celebrating the histories that we have, and we're trying to create a more multi-dimensional approach and interaction with each other.
The idea of honoring the legacy of Chinua Achebe as a major activity in this Lebanese-Nigerian celebration made more sense, because if human beings are social, artistic, and spiritual by nature, as Achebe believed, then the area of culture really ought to take its place. Inspired by his life and moved by his death, an organizing committee was put together. It was composed of diplomats, philosophers, artists, academics, and students. Professor Yusuf Rahme initially proposed the grandiose idea of inviting Professor Akinwande Oluwole Soyinka as the guest of honor to join in honoring the legacy of Achebe.
In 2014, we hosted Wole Soyinka in commemoration of Chinua Achebe's death in 2013. And it was a tremendous success for the Lebanon as well as for the Cedars.
Soyinka, not only a winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, and not only the first African to win that prize, but one of the few laureates who had gotten only better and sharper and more renowned and more active during the long 3 decades since receiving the prize in 1986. Soyinka, who chooses with great care which of the myriad invitations he will accept, responded to the invitation with an open heart. The celebration began on the 18th of March with a reception for Professor Wole Soyinka, attended by the Nigerian ambassador, and a special surprise, one of Soyinka's Lebanese friends, Nidal al-Ash'ar. On the 20th of March, Dr. Habib Ja'far sponsored a fabulous dinner in Beirut to honor Soyinka, which provided a unique opportunity to prominent Lebanese Nigerians and for Lebanese from all walks of life to meet and speak personally with Soyinka. On the 21st of March, Notre Dame University Loise was graced with the presence of Soyinka, who came to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the death of the father of modern African literature, Chinua Achebe. This was the first time NDU received a Nobel Prize winner on its campus. Professor Amin Rihane gave a brief talk on behalf of Notre Dame University's president, stressing the importance of African literature in the canon of world literature. Professor Edward Alam then gave his opening address that raised the question, can great writing come from anything less than great living? The editor-in-chief of African Literature Today, Ernest Emenyonu, hit just the note and paved the way for Soyinka's intriguing talk titled That Message from Another Country. Later that night, Faisal and Mail Khalil hosted Soyinka at their home for dinner along with other guests. Mr. Faisal al-Khalil noted that because of Professor Soyinka's visit, the cultural links between Lebanon and Nigeria would deepen. On the 22nd of March, a special reception and lunch for Professor Soyinka took place at Jaita Country Club. Hosted by the main sponsor of the entire celebration, Mr. Said Khalaf, who spoke about his personal experience in Nigeria. He also announced that his company, Citraco Group, was providing scholarships for Nigerian students to study in Lebanon. The efforts at honoring Achebe on the first anniversary of his death and the publication of a volume documenting the entire event has bore great fruit. One example is the already established Study Abroad in Lebanon SAIL program, which had hosted students from Brazil, with programs planned for students from Ukraine, the US, and Iran, was extended to students from Nigeria.
Dr. Alam, ever since I met him, when I took his class about 6 or 7 years ago, it has been, he's always had a vision. And now his vision was to bring a different culture and to show them our culture and find a way to create a bridge. And that's exactly what defines this program exactly. It's creating a bridge of cultures.
The SAIL program is a course in world history through the eyes of Lebanon.
It's amazing that we've just spent, I think, about 3 days, and what we have learned, it's just been extraordinary. We've had so much information, we've walked history, we've been to marvelous places, and the lectures have been amazing.
It complements lectures with first-hand experience of UNESCO, World Heritage Sites, and other historically significant areas, and exposes students to the culture of dialogue and its implementation with Lebanese society.
We were given a lot of discouragements, and chief among them was that we are going to a war zone. But on getting to Lebanon, I personally have discovered that the place is as peaceful as heaven. And also, this concept of the Arab people hating the whole world, has been dispelled. Because everywhere we go, every now and then, we find lovely and wonderful and good people. I'm very, very happy to be here. In fact, I'm considering changing my base, and I won't mind if I get a job at NDU. Thank you.
The content of the course combines philosophy, theology, world and Ottoman history, and art and architectural history. It is an intensive 10 to 15-day course with over 8 hours of daily contact and interaction with faculty, guest lecturers, and officially certified tourist guides.
The Cedars Institute was founded in 2012 to try to change the direction the Cedars is taking. The Cedars is indeed a touristic center, both a summer resort as well as a winter resort. However, we'd like to transform it into a premier center of culture, learning, and heritage. In collaboration with NDU and the Benedict Chair at NDU, we've been hosting conferences and programs since 2012. And we hope to build links with the rest of the world through study abroad programs, through the SAIL program, through artistic projects that involve different parts of the globe.
So this whole experience of the SAIL program as part of was one of the programs of the Benedict Chair has been so enriching. We have this saying in Lebanese, when somebody asks you how you're feeling, you say, better than I deserve. That's really how I feel being involved in this SAIL program, dealing with students from all over the world, giving them a picture of world history through the eyes of Lebanon, which we don't have to invent, because in Lebanon, world history does converge. So this whole experience has just been so rewarding. And I'm so grateful to all the students who participated, to my university, Notre Dame University, to the chair, the Benedict XVI chair that I hold, and especially to my colleague, Yusuf Rahmi, who is the president of the Cedars Institute, who first really came with this idea of study abroad in Lebanon. The whole experience has been wonderful. I'm very grateful, and I look forward to what's to come.
This volume presents interesting and meaningful work of 4 international speakers. Ernest Emenyonu, Chinua Achebe, the man, the writer, and his legacies. Wole Soyinka, that message from another country. Odimegwu, construction of an African identity in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. William Alade Fawole, the legacy of Chinua Achebe. Dialogical explorations in politics and literature. The newly established Benedict XVI Endowed Chair of Religious, Cultural, and Philosophical Studies is proud to present its very own publication, honoring Chinua Achebe.